version. I've got plenty of it.
Yeah, just let's do the King James Version again.
Okay, I'll go here.
So just to remind you, it's Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 9.
Okay. He that hath a bountiful eye shall be blessed, for he giveth of his bread to the poor.
So that's the idiom. He that has a bountiful eye shall be blessed. Now, on that theme, what does the NIV, the New International Version, say?
The NIV says, the generous will themselves be blessed, for they share their food with the poor.
So we've seen both uses of the idiom here. Someone who has an evil eye is stingy, even miserly.
Pecunious.
Right, yes, exactly. Someone, on the other hand, who has a good or bountiful eye is someone who is generous. Right, this next text, could you read in the modern English version? It's Proverbs 23, verses 5 to 8. What does that say?
It says, just 1 second, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Job, Psalms, Proverbs, chapter 23, verses what?
5 to 8.
Okay. Will ye set your eye on that which is not? For riches certainly make themselves wings. They fly away as an eagle toward heaven. Do not eat the bread of him who has an evil eye, neither desire his delicacies. For as he thinks in his heart, so is he. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. The morsel you have eaten, you will vomit up and lose your sweet words.
And the New International Version?
Just one more. Cast but a glance on riches, and they are gone. For they will surely sprout wings and fly off to the sky like an eagle. Do not eat the food of a beguiling host. Do not crave his delicacies, for he is the kind of person who is always thinking about the cost. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. You will vomit up the little you have eaten, and will have wasted your compliments.
So the idiom says, do not eat the food of a man with an evil eye. The actual meaning is, don't receive anything from someone who begrudges giving it to you. The point that Scripture is trying to make is that Yah's people are to be generous. We're not so caught up in getting ahead that we are miserly with heaven's gifts. Turn to Matthew chapter 5. This is Christ's Sermon on the Mount, and here he reveals what Yahweh is like, telling his listeners that just as Yahweh is generous, so are his followers to be. Matthew chapter 5, verses 43 to 48, please, Miles.
Okay. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbour and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you. And that you may be sons of your Father in heaven, for he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward have you? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet your brethren only, what do you do more than others? Do not even the tax collectors do so? Therefore you shall be perfect, just as your Father in heaven is perfect.
This is a beautiful revelation of the inner heart of Yah. He wishes well on his friends and enemies alike. He doesn't hold grudges. He wants everyone to be prosperous and happy. And if we want to be like him, we will be too. Yahweh planned generosity into the Hebrew economy. Every 7 years there was a sabbatical when the land was to rest. And every seventh cycle of 7 years was the year of Jubilee, when land that had been leased out would return to its original owners and indentured slaves would be set free.
Let's take a moment to read that, actually. I think it would have the meaning if someone hasn't read it before.
Oh, yeah, okay, good point. Well, it's Leviticus chapter 25, I think.
Okay, right. Verses 1 to 17, it says, And Yahweh spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, When you come into the land which I give you, then the land shall keep a Sabbath to Yahweh. 6 years you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyard, and gather its fruit. But in the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath of solemn rest for the land, a Sabbath to Yahweh. You shall neither sow your field nor prune your vineyard. What grows of its own accord of your harvest you shall not reap, nor gather the grapes of your untended vine. For it is a year of rest for the land, and the Sabbath produce of the land shall be food for you. For you, your male and female servants, your hired man, and the stranger who dwells with you.
Notice that even the stranger among them was to be dealt with generously. In many first world countries, there's often resentment against immigrants from third world countries, but that is an unscriptural attitude. We are to be as kind and generous to the stranger amongst us as we are to our own.
I think churches do this too, don't they, sometimes? When I was a kid, there was some natural disaster. I forget what it was, but I do remember hearing on the news how this one particular denomination would send people around, and the first thing they asked was if the family affected by the natural disaster was a member of their church or not. If the people were members of the church, they'd help them. If not, they'd go on. And you see, even as a kid, I was quite shocked by that. When I asked my mum about it, she said that particular denomination was known for helping only their own.
Yeah, and it's not what Scripture teaches that we're to do, is it?
No, yeah, absolutely. Okay, and the Sabbath produce of the land shall be food for you, your male and female servants, your hired man, and the stranger who dwells with you. Okay. For your livestock and the beasts that are in your land, all its produce shall be for food. And you shall count 7 Sabbaths of years for yourself, 7 times 7 years. And the time of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be to you 49 years. Then you shall cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. On the day of atonement, you shall make the trumpet to sound throughout all your land. And you shall consecrate the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for them, and each of you shall return to his possession, and each of you shall return to his family. That 50th year shall be a jubilee to you. In it you shall neither sow nor reap what grows of its own accord, nor gather the grapes of your untended vine, for it is the jubilee. It shall be holy to you. You shall eat its produce from the field. In this year of Jubilee, each of you shall return to his possession. And if you sell anything to your neighbor or buy from your neighbor's hand, you shall not oppress one another. According to the number of years after the Jubilee, you shall buy from your neighbor, and according to the number of years of crops he shall sell to you. According to the multitude of years, you shall increase its price, and according to the fewer number of years, you shall diminish its price. For he sells to you according to the number of the years of the crops. Therefore, you shall not oppress one another. You shall fear your God, for I am Yahweh, your God.